All right, welcome to our talk, Life from a Quantum Perspective, combining the principles of spirituality with quantum physics. So, the topics we'll be covering today are introduction, the case for the quantum, the case for spiritual principles, how this combination fits into our day to day life, and using tools to accomplish change in your life. So, let's go to the introduction. Now, why would we want to learn this information? Because when you understand these concepts and you use them, you can become more aware of how you're using energy and how it affects your life. And the result is you'll end up having more of what you want and less of what you don't want. So life is more graceful when you know how it works. When you have the instruction manual, you're not bumping around, guessing at everything and going through a lot of what doesn't work in order to get to some of what does work. So you can just skip the what doesn't work and just focus on what does work, and your life will be much more graceful. So we're going to start with the foundation that if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And that's the foundation of what we'll be talking about, and just how much it integrates with our lives. So when you understand these secrets, you don't have to struggle in life. Okay? And the secrets of the universe are delivered through the application of quantum physics with the principles of spirituality. So let's start with the case for the quantum. Under quantum physics, everything is energy. Science has proven that objects are both particles and waves. They've actually measured the vibrational frequency of an electron, and they see that an electron has both wave characteristics and particle characteristics. So objects and particles are also waves. Now, Einstein's theory of special relativity shows us this relationship with E equals mc squared. Now, E is energy, m is mass or matter, and c is the speed of light, and that's c squared. So the speed of light is a very high number. And when you square it, it's even higher. And so what this shows is that a little bit of mass can create a tremendous amount of energy. So there's that relationship there. Now, this means that everything around us can be described as a frequency. So let's talk about that a little bit. So in a wave system, okay, so if everything around us is a frequency and can be described as a frequency or a vibration or a wave, observing wave-like systems at the quantum level affects the state of the system. Now, this is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So this means when we observe or we focus on something, it influences what we're focusing on, influences its state. So what does that ultimately mean? Is that we influence our reality by what we focus on. And a focus is just an intense thought. So going into this a little bit deeper, the law of conservation of energy says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change from one state to another. So this tells us that any solution to change is also going to be energetic in nature. Okay? And that means that when you're wanting to change something, there's nothing to destroy or get rid of because you can't get rid of energy. You can only transform it, like emotions or thoughts. So if we have a habit that we don't want anymore, all right? It's not about destroying or getting rid of the habit. It's about transforming the energy that is creating that habit. Okay, which stems from our emotions, it stems from our thoughts. So it's about changing that energy and not destroying it, because you can't destroy energy. So how significant are these concepts? So when you combine them all together, if everything is energy, then our relationship to our world is actually at an energetic level. So everything that we're interacting with, that we're coming up against, that we're feeling, thinking, touching, everything, it's at an energetic level at its core. So it might appear physical, but it's still how we're perceiving that particular energetic vibration. So everything is represented by an energetic frequency. So if everything is a frequency, okay, and a few slides earlier, I just said with the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, if we're focused on something, if we observe a system, if we observe a wave-like system, which is a frequency, then that very observation, that very focus changes the state of that frequency. So it changes the energy and it changes our reality. So this means our world is influenced by our thoughts. So let's really look at it in this way. So the energetic relationship to our environment, that means our senses are really energy frequency detectors. All right, so we have our skin. Our skin is really, what is the skin? We can feel heat, all right, through touch. This represents touch. We can feel hot and cold. Now, hot and cold, that's just a, excuse me, range called infrared on the electromagnetic energy scale, all right, or energy energy frequency. It's just it's a range, all right, but it's still an energy frequency. Sight is an eyeball, all right, that picks up another range called visible light on the electromagnetic frequency scale. All right. Now the electromagnetic frequency scale is a huge range. It goes from cosmic or X-rays frequency all the way down to low infrared. All right. So it's a huge range. Our senses don't pick up the entire range, but we do pick up some frequencies, some ranges of different frequencies in that electromagnetic scale. Now, the ear represents sound. So sound's not an electromagnetic frequency, it's another type of frequency wave, all right? And we can detect that. And so when with shorter frequency ranges, you get a higher pitch. With longer frequency ranges, we get a lower pitch. And again, we don't pick up the entire sound frequency because there's some that go below what we can hear, and there's some that go above. Like for instance, dog whistles. We as humans don't pick that up. It's beyond our range, but dogs can hear it. Okay? And then elephants can hear below our range. So, but that's basically what these are. Now, we have the taste and touch, or smell, excuse me. And you're going to go, well, what about these two? There's no frequency range there. And I propose that there is. I propose that the taste of sugar or the taste of salt or the taste of a lemon, that is represented by a frequency. We just haven't created the scientific instrument to measure that frequency yet. And the same with the smell, like the smell of a rose or the smell of a cheese pizza, okay, or the smell of beer, all right, or the sea, the smell of the beach. That all is represented by a frequency. And again, for that, we just haven't developed the scientific instrumentation to measure that frequency. Because if you think back 150 years ago, 200 years ago, there were no instruments that measured these frequencies. And we have these instruments today. We can measure them today. We can tell exactly what that frequency is. So, but before that, it would have the same kind of um, uh, inability to be able to measure that frequency, before those instruments came along. And so these senses here we would not have associated with detecting frequencies like these senses. So I propose wait a little bit and we'll be able to develop scientific instruments to be able to measure these types of frequencies. So the purpose of that is once we get our senses, pick up these frequencies and they transfer it to our brain interprets these frequencies that are detected by our senses, and then it interprets it, and then we see things, we feel things, we smell things, where we're in the world and we're making sense of the world around us, but we're making sense of it on an energetic level. It's like the movie The Matrix. If you've seen that scene where the one guy, I forgot his name, but he's looking at the screen and we're just seeing numbers going by. And because he's looked at it for years and years and years, he recognizes the different patterns and what they are. And so that's what our brain is doing. We're getting this information in, and it recognizes the patterns, and then we are able to make sense of what these patterns are. Now, our brain also transmits frequencies through our thoughts, which affect our environment, just as we're energetically affected by our environment. And there's a movie video on YouTube called The Resonance in Residence, and it really is a pretty good movie about describing how we're affected by the energy in our environment and how we affect the energy in our environment. And I'll give you an example. If you've ever walked into a room after there's been like a huge fight, and you walk in after they've all done, they're all done fighting, but they're still stewing over what happened, and so they're just projecting all of this frustration thoughts out, and maybe like, oh, I can't stand you thoughts out into the room, and then you walk into the middle of that, you feel it. You feel like there's an unease or something's happened. Something's happened. You might not know what, but you feel uneasy about it. Have you ever had that happen to you? You know, um, so what's happening is you're feeling the energy that was transmitted by everybody in that room, during that argument, and you're just walking in the middle of it. So it's kind of like you're walking into a room and people splash a bucket of paint at you or something. Um, you're just being surrounded by all that energy. Now, the power of our thoughts, what is the power of our thoughts? Well, words carry energy, intention, emotion. Behind the words stem from thoughts which are transmitted by our brain. So you can read more about the power of words, all right, in Esoteric Knowledge, The Hidden Magic of Words, and this is a video on YouTube. Now, there's a double thing here. So the word itself carries energy, and then the intention behind the word that you're saying also carries energy. So you can actually have the word and your intention cancel each other out by your words say one thing, but your intention is the opposite. Or you can have them work together, which would magnify the energy behind the word. So, example is, if somebody says to you in a sarcastic manner, oh, your sweater's really nice. And they totally don't mean it. They think your sweater is actually ugly, but they're being sarcastic about it. That's going to have one type of feeling to it. Then if somebody else says, "Oh, your sweater's really nice," and they really love the sweater and they really mean it and they really think it's nice, that's going to have another feeling to it. So the words carry energy, but the intention behind the words carries a lot of energy as well. So when you're wanting to align with something, you have to look at your words, your emotions, your thoughts. They all have to be in alignment. All right. Now, we are our thoughts. So the thoughts that we project out there are also going to attract thoughts onto us as well. Or I should say, attract vibration or frequency onto us as well. Now, you can test this out with two tuning forks that are tuned to the same frequency. Now, you can stand them next to each other and you ring one, okay, by tapping on it. You ring it. What's going to happen is the other one is going to start ringing without it being hit or anything like that. It's just going to naturally start ringing because it's attuned to the first tuning fork that you're hitting, that you're tapping on. And if you had two tuning forks that were different frequencies and you hit one, the other one wouldn't ring because they're a different frequency. So this is really important to understand this, because what you're projecting out, you're attracting back to you. And so this is an important concept to know and understand and be aware of. So that's why sometimes when you wake up in the morning and you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, your whole day seems like crap, because you're attracting that to you. If unless you break that pattern, that thought, and go in another direction with your thoughts and emotions and everything, then you can change how you experience your day. So basically, thoughts are things. You have thought figures, you have artificial elementals. You're putting that out into the world and attracting it back to you. So the question is, how in command are we of our thoughts and therefore our reality? So how in command are we of our reality? Is it, are we living a conscious reality? Or are we living an unconscious reality? Because we're just not really paying attention of our thoughts, and we're not in command of our thoughts. Okay, now let's talk about the case for spiritual principles. So the core of the spiritual, and what most spiritual practices really focus on at their core, is about teaching us how to be more aware and conscious and more in command of how we use our thoughts so we can better affect our own lives. So why can this be valuable? And let's start with the law of spiritual quantum energy. So in each and every moment, we are only in one of two states of energy. And in each and every moment, we are projecting out into the environment our current state of being. So remember, we cannot create or destroy energy. We can only change it from one form to another. So I'm going to be mentioning this a couple times because this is very, very important to get this concept. Okay? This makes the difference between struggling in your spiritual practices and having them, moving through them with more grace and ease. So there's only two energetic states of existence: anger, fear, and that involves some form of judgment, blame, guilt, shame, control, or manipulation, and being unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others. Okay, now you can find this concept in The Freedom is Internal System by Veronique. And this is a mouthful, and there's a shorter way of saying this, but I wanted to mention this one first. So what is the shorter way of saying this one? Being unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others. That's love in its innocence. And so it's not to confuse it with our perception of love, which is what we think we need to do in order to give or receive love. So that's conditional. It contains, our perception of love contains some form of judgment, blame, guilt, shame, control, or manipulation. All right. Now, if you've heard of the book The Language of Love, that's where they go into how we express somebody's perception of love. So some people may feel love when you say you love them. Some people may feel love when you do things for them. Some people may feel love when you give them things. Okay, that's a perception of love. And that's not love in its innocence. That's not love that's being unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others. And if you look at that and you measure it against that, then you can see where there's some conditions in that. Um, you're always in one state or another. You're never not in another state. It's either this, anger, fear, or love in its innocence. All right. So in each and every moment, we're either creating from anger, fear, because we're in that state. So that's what we're manifesting from, or we are creating from or projecting out into the world love in its innocence. Again, we're never not projecting or creating. However, we can switch from one energy state into the next in a moment, in a breath. And when you have the right tools to do that, and it's easy to train yourself and do that so you're not sitting and stewing in anger, fear. Now, why is it important to know the difference between these two things? Okay, why is it that important? Because when you are staying anger, fear, you experience some form of loss, lack, illness, stress, struggle, sacrifice. All right. When you're in love in its innocence, you experience grace, ease, abundance, happiness, hope, health. Okay. So that's why it's important to know when you're in one of these states or another. And that's why, well, let's go on to the next slide. Okay. Um, so it's like the question is, will you be satisfied, or you can manifest with either energy? That's what I want to say. All right. And the question is, will you be satisfied with the result of the energy you choose to manifest with? So when you manifest in anger, fear, okay, your manifestations don't last. Okay, not only do you experience those other things, they also come with some sort of sacrifice, along with experiencing, some loss, lack, illness, stress, struggle, whatever. When you manifest in love in its innocence, the manifestations are long term. They require no sacrifice. It's like you can have your cake and eat it too. Not only can you have your cake and eat it too, you can eat it, your cake, you can set it aside to eat it later, you can give some of it away, you can come back for thirds and fourths, okay, and second helpings. You can do whatever you want with your cake when you're in love in its innocence. Okay, so that's the difference. And now, again, you can create, there are people that have created great wealth using anger, fear. All right. But what's happened is they've had to sacrifice something, and they have to keep putting a lot of effort and energy into maintaining that wealth. It doesn't last on its own. You have to keep putting a lot of effort into it. But you've heard people where they they create a great amount of wealth, and they will sacrifice their health for their wealth, or their relationships for their wealth, or their happiness for their wealth. All right, it comes with something, and um, some sort of loss, basically. And when you're manifesting from love and its innocence, there's no sacrifice. It's like you have it all. You can have it all. That's just the nature of the energy. So when let's go on to the next slide. So the reason it works this way, all right, because the foundation energy frequency of the universe is that of love in its innocence. All right, this is like, you've heard like in Star Wars what they call using the Force. Okay, well this is the natural state of the universe. So when you're in anger, fear, you're at odds with the natural state of the universe. and you're at a frequency that's different to the one in the of the universe. So the universe can't support you and magnify what you're projecting into the world. So it's like you're rowing your boat upstream, okay? And it's all that effort is on you. And that's where that sacrifice comes in. When you're in love and its innocence, you're allowing the universe to support you in creating your intention, because it's the same frequency as the universal energy state. So it's like you're going downstream. The wind is at your back and it's blowing your sails, and moving you forward. So that's where that ease and grace comes from. So this also explains um, why you may have some people. Well, let's go here. The reason why you see two people who seem to be doing the same thing yet appear to get completely different results. Okay, that's because the person that's using anger, fear to create with, all right, they're taking actions with this energy. It produces struggles and losses. And when people are doing love in its innocence, and they're doing the same thing, they might be doing take the same actions, but they're taking from the completely opposite energy. They get more ease and grace and abundance in their end result. So that's why this explains why, because I know a lot of people are confused as to why they have that book, like When Bad Things Happen to Good People. Well, it's really not a mystery, because it's the energy they're using. So you can have somebody that's really, they're helping other people, they're doing, they have a good heart, they're caring. But if they have a lot of unresolved anger, fear issues that they haven't looked at and they haven't resolved, that's still bouncing around in their system. And so they don't have, and they might not know it. And so they're manifesting everything with this unresolved anger, fear, okay, that they have inside of themselves. And then you may have another person that, they may seem like they're a jerk. It's like, well, this guy's a jerk. Why is all this other great stuff happening to him? Well, he might have resolved his unresolved anger, fear, and his personality just might be kind of prickly or whatever. But he's loving what he's doing. He's in the love of it. He's in the joy of it, and so he's gonna receive, or he's gonna experience, um, more grace, ease, and abundance. And so he's gonna experience an opposite result than the person that appears to be really nice and wonderful and all of that. So it's really not a mystery why that happens. All right, so ultimately at the end, all there is love. That's the energetic state of the universe. All right, it's just this love. So either you are in alignment with that, or you're not. So either there's a lack of love in your life, or you're existing in love. Okay, and we cannot be. This means we can't be both at the same time. Only one or the other. So it's like a light switch. It's either on or it's off. Okay, the light switch is not on and off at the same time. Can't happen. So what indicates what energetic state we're in? So you can see that when you observe yourself, when you observe what your feelings are. How are you feeling in the moment? When you observe what your words are, okay, how do you communicate? An example: are you using the word try all the time? Are you using the word can't all the time? Well, that indicates what's residing within you. What are your beliefs? Do you have beliefs that say you don't deserve wealth, or you don't deserve happiness, or you're not worthy? Okay. If notice those things popping up. What are your thoughts? What do you think about? Do you always think about something that's struggling? Do you constantly think about something that's troubling you? And or do you think about things that bring you joy? Okay, very different energies. How do you act or react to life? When something happens to you, do you immediately go into fear and anger and get upset about it? Or are you just like neutral and say, okay, this is what it is. All right? So you have all of these indicators that will tell you what your state of existence is. And when you notice it, then you can do something to change it. But if you're not paying attention, it's like you're driving and you have no direction what you're driving in, or no direction what you're driving towards. You don't have a map. Somebody plops you in the middle of somewhere, and they put you in a car and they say, okay, go to Arizona, and you have no idea where you are, so you have no idea which direction to go to get to Arizona because you don't know where you are. All right, so the benefits of living through love in innocence. So when you are living that way, then you have the ability to focus more clearly on what you want, and you're more open, to your intuition. And that's where your true guidance system is. That's the guidance. Your intuition is a guidance system that never leads you astray. It never leads you wrong. It never leads you in the wrong direction. Okay, when you're open to your intuition, um, and you have clear intention, those are the two main things that will get you to where you want to go. And then you are, again, you're able to experience the best outcome no matter the situation you're in. So when you're living in love and innocence, it doesn't mean that you won't experience challenges. You will. That's a part of being here, because you're here to grow and you're here to expand. And so challenges are what's going to happen. Now, when you're in love and innocence, you experience the situation in the best way, meaning as you're going through the experience, you'll notice someone will give you some information at the right timing, or you'll come into some resources at the last moment, the right timing. um, and you'll never, I mean, you'll experience challenge, but you won't experience struggle. All right. If you fall into fear at your situation, that's where the struggle comes in, because that's the energy you're projecting out. Again, it's simply a recipe. So neither manifestation, whether you're manifesting from anger, fear, or you're manifesting from love and innocence, neither is right or wrong. All right. It's just, what do you want to experience, you know, in your life. Both have their purposes. And it's like a recipe. If you want angel food cake, you can't bring the ingredients to meatloaf. So if you want to experience Gracie's abundance and whatever, you can't stay in your anger fear energy. It's not going to happen. That's not what that energy frequency ultimately produces. It just doesn't produce it. It just doesn't. Okay. So it's like, what is it you want, and you got to be willing to bring the ingredients to create what you want. And so, and what ingredients are you willing to invest in to have what you want? So if you want grace, if you know that you're in anger, fear, and all that, but you want to experience grace, ease, and abundance, but you're not willing to do what it takes to move into that energy, okay, then you have to be honest with yourself and say, all right, um, I don't I'm not ready for that yet. And again, no right or wrong. The more honest and truthful you are with yourself, the easier it is to make the transition when you are ready, okay, to experience the other side of the coin, so to speak. Okay, now let's discuss how the combination of quantum physics and principles of spirituality fit into our day to day life. So let's start with the construction of our mind and where our thoughts come from. Our mind is divided into two parts, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. 10% of our mind is the conscious mind, and 90% is the subconscious mind. So as a result, our thoughts are mostly influenced by what resides in our subconscious mind. This is the key driver here. And this is why affirmations don't always work, and addictions can be difficult to overcome, because if we are saying, let's say as an example, the affirmation is, I can be wealthy. If our subconscious mind says that we don't deserve to be wealthy, or if we're wealthy, all kinds of horrible things come to us, then that statement, I can be wealthy, it goes against what resides in the subconscious mind, which is 90%. So that affirmation is not going to be effective for you, because you're going to have 10% of your mind fighting against 90%. So until you address the core that says that if you're wealthy, horrible things will happen to you, until you address that, that information is going to be useless to you. So what's the relationship between our mind and reality? So we have thoughts and feelings. We start with this. Then it goes to beliefs. Beliefs go to the words. The words that we use reflect our beliefs. And then we go from words to choices. Okay, our choices are based on the words that we use. Our actions are based on the choices we make. And then our reality is based on the actions we take. And it can be sort of a feedback loop, because then we can bring it all back to thoughts and feelings again. If you're looking outside at your outside world, at your reality, all right, that can influence the thoughts and feelings that you have. And so you can see how it can be a feedback loop, thus making this more and more, um, what do I want to call it, deeper, a deeper and deeper, or a stronger and stronger thought as this feedback loop continues. So it's until you break this feedback loop, all right, that you can begin to change your reality. You can begin to change this thought, which will change everything else that comes after it. And that's the key. So, since our reality is ultimately influenced by our thoughts, this means that our reality is influenced by what resides in our subconscious mind. So, we'll just go into that a little bit deeper. So, the question is, how do we become aware of what resides in our subconscious mind and change it if it isn't projecting the energy into the world that will manifest what we passion? So, it's again, how do we change this subconscious thought feeling so that this changes? So the first thing is to become aware of what is in our subconscious mind. All right? So if it's the subconscious mind, you're not conscious of it, how can you become conscious? So this is when we begin paying attention to ourselves, becoming aware of ourselves. And we're giving ourselves clues all the time about what resides in our subconscious mind. And these come in the form of feelings. What feelings do we have, about what's happening in our day-to-day life? What are the words that we use? Okay. What are our beliefs? What are our thoughts that we have, that we're thinking on a moment-to-moment basis? Just saying that you get what you think about most of the time. So what are you thinking about most of the time? And then reactions or actions. What kind of actions do we have? What kind of reactions do we have to situations we're experiencing? This will all tell you and shine a light on what resides in your subconscious mind. And you can know by observing what we're experiencing in our reality when we pay attention to these keys. So become your own best detective. Continually ask yourself questions until you get down to the core. what that means is it's not about asking why, because that's the gerbil wheel. It's like, why am I feeling this? That you can just ask and not really make any change for that. But ask yourself questions to get to the core of, for instance, a thought. Are you at the core of what you keep thinking? All right? Or is what you're thinking a reflection of a deeper thought, okay, or a deeper belief? All right? Um, because once you get down to the core, you will be able to change, everything that comes after it. So you'll be able to change any of these other sub thoughts that are um, created from the core thought. Okay, so that's what we mean by continually ask yourself questions to get down to the core. And same with feelings too. So with any of these, just get down to the core. And then you'll know that you've gotten to the core, and when you make that change, you'll see, that reflect in the reality that you're experiencing. So how do we simply refocus what our mind contains? So let's start with the concept that there's really nothing you have to get rid of, okay? So remember that saying about energy several slides back, about you can't create or destroy energy. You can only change it from one state to another. So you're not really getting rid of anything. It's just transforming. And so how does that work in our lives? All right, what's the relationship to that concept to our lives? So because it's energy and you're just changing an energetic vibration, you want to be efficient and effective with it. So here are some things that can make it efficient and effective in changing that energetic vibration. So one is timing. So change is the most efficient the moment the thought is occurring. So if you want to change your core thought, all right, your feeling, which is where things stem from, you change it the moment you notice the thought happening. So when you begin feeling like, let's say you feel like you don't deserve wealth, all right, and you have a lot of thoughts surrounding that, okay, the moment you feel that you're thinking things related to you don't deserve wealth, all right, now that would be the core thing. So you might have another thought that's related to that you would think, and that might be like you're thinking certain things are too difficult. Things that would, when you take that action, would help lead to wealth, but you may think that they're difficult to do. All right. The core thought would be that you believe that you don't deserve wealth. All right. So that would be in the previous slide about, being your own detective, getting down to the core. So when you have that core and you have thoughts related to that, you immediately notice that, all right, then you change it. There are tools that you can use that will help transform the energy of not believing you deserve wealth to believing you deserve wealth. And again, the best way to do that is to change it the moment it's happening. And then, what is your energetic state of emotion? Are you reinforcing the old destructive emotions, or are you changing them? That's where the timing comes in. So if you keep thinking the same thing over and over, I don't deserve wealth, you're reinforcing, all right, that destructive emotion, okay? And then hidden agendas. So pay attention to hidden agendas that might be lurking in your subconscious. All right, what are some things like a hidden agenda, meaning you feel like you don't deserve wealth. There may be a hidden agenda around that, like you're not worthy of wealth. Okay. Um, or you, if you have wealth, you believe you'll misuse it. All right. There's a hidden agenda that you're not aware of, that you have to become aware of, because as long as that's there, that will get in your way of truly believing that you deserve wealth. And then once you have that, um, knowing, you take an action that will seal in the change that you want. So you'll take an action that will support you in the belief that you deserve wealth. All right. So whatever action that is that your intuition tells you, all right, you take an action that will reinforce the new thought that you are wanting to affirm. So remember, it's all about changing the energy state from one state to another. So we can look at it this way. All right, when we're connecting to our subconscious mind, we can look at our lives or our actions as being part of a guided missile. All right, are you on track for what you want or what you're passionate in your life? So a guided missile is off course 90% of the time. All right, so you're not always going to be immediately going from A to Z, directly without any course correction. You're going to be course correcting the whole time you go from A to Z. And so it's about paying attention to where you are, and is that taking you in the direction you want to go moment to moment. So through a series of minor adjustments made in the moment, the missile first goes off course. The missile eventually hits its target. So it's always going to hit the target, but it's always going to be making slight adjustments, to get to the target. And part of that foundation in being able to adjust, all right, is being accountable and responsible unconditionally, simultaneously with self and others. And that's the guidance system. So remember when I talked about that way back, about the two states of energy we're always in. And that one state is being unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others. That is love and innocence. And remember, what happens when you manifest through love and its innocence? You receive grace, ease, and abundance. That's where you can have it all. That's where you can have your cake and eat it too. Okay? So let's break this down in relation to the guided missile system. So being accountable and responsible, that gives you the ability to steer in another direction if necessary and make timely adjustments. So remember, the missile is always making adjustments and in a timely manner. It's not waiting until it's off course by several hundred miles, okay, or 700 kilometers, whatever system you use. It makes it as soon as it notices that it's off course. So it's always paying attention, all right? And so that's what being accountable and responsible does. It gives you the ability to know what's going on the moment that you see things slightly veer off course, all right? Being unconditional. Being unconditional lets you know that you're off course so you can make corrections. So it allows you to keep correcting without undoing it. So unconditional is you're not judging that you're off course. If you're judging that you're off course, what that tends to mean is that you won't admit to yourself that you're off course. So you're going to pretend that you're still on course, all right, when you're not really, because you don't want to, you think being off course is wrong, and you don't want to be wrong because that's bad. You don't want to be bad, so you just pretend that everything's okay. Or it's a lot harder to make that correction in a timely manner. So if you're not being unconditional, you wait until the missile is hundreds of kilometers or hundreds of miles off course, right? Before you can correct it, because it's just so obvious that you just have to take some kind of action. And then it's going to take what's going to happen is going to take a lot more energy to bring it back on course, a lot more effort and everything to bring it back on course. And a lot of times you may overcorrect, okay, because you're so far off course. So it's like sometimes when you're driving, you're kind of overreacting, and you turn the car, you turn the steering wheel, and you overcorrect it a bit, and so you have to turn it back, and then finally you can adjust and keep driving straight. So it's the same kind of thing. So being unconditional allows you to correct it in the moment, not have to go so far off course, uses less energy, takes less time. All right? And the last part, simultaneously with self and others. So you're focusing on adjusting your own guidance system, and you're trusting others can adjust their own guidance system without doing it for them. As you know, they may have a different target and will require different adjustments, just like you would have a different target from them. So you're not letting somebody else adjust your guidance system, because they may adjust it that's not in a direction that's appropriate for you, because they may adjust it for their direction, but you're going someplace else. So that's the wrong adjustment for you. Okay? So we think of our lives as a guided missile. Everything, you want to know if you're off course as soon as possible. It's a good thing. So whether you're on course or off course, it's both good, because that's what supports you in hitting your target. So it's about taking that action and readjusting if necessary. So the next section we're going to get into is using tools to accomplish change in your life. So we went through all of the ways, different ways that energy affects our lives. I will say most of the different ways that we would want to focus on now, and how we affect energy, how energy affects us, and how we affect others and others affect us, and things that we can do within ourselves to be able to get a better handle on how energy works in our lives. So what we're going to actually talk about in this section are tools that we can use to actually make this work, have this combination work in our daily lives. So let's get started. So the first thing that we want to understand is the best way to really make changes and to really understand energies is to use our everyday life experiences to facilitate change. We're always having life experiences. They don't ever stop. We don't ever not have life experience. So that's the purpose of life experiences, actually, is to support us in understanding energy and how it affects us. So when we're aware of this, we can find tools that will directly, address our subconscious mind, because we understand how subconscious mind fits into our everyday life and our how we experience our daily life. And we also want to use tools to address our conscious mind. So even though our subconscious mind is 90%, let's bring that other 10% on. So we're using 100% of our mind to support creating what we want to have in our life. And that's when the real fun and magic happens. Then we also want to use tools to keep us focused on what we want, because we can think about 1,000 different things during the course of an hour. And we want to really be able to focus on what we want and not have our thoughts and our energy scattered all over the place. So how do we do that? How can we use tools to help us and support us in doing that? We want to use tools to keep our to keep us unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others. And so this is the frequency. This supports us in being in that energy of love. And we know what the benefit of being in love in its innocence is. We know what that creates in our lives and how that creates in our lives. And so when we have these tools, we use them consistently, because remember, it's not just a one and done thing. We have to consistently use it, because in each and every moment, we're putting energy out there. We're creating something. Either we're putting out the energy of anger, fear, or we're putting out the energy of love and its innocence. So it's consistent use of these tools in our everyday life, in our day-to-day, moment-to-moment being. And as we consistently address our destructive thoughts and focus on what we want, unconditionally, accountably, and responsibly, okay, simultaneously with self and others, we'll begin to see the change in our outer world. All right? So that's when we know things are happening. When our inside changes, our outside automatically follows. So the factors to efficiently change the subconscious. We've seen a lot of things out there that will address our subconscious, but how do we change it efficiently, okay, and effectively? We want to be fully unconditional, accountable, and responsible for how we handle our experiences. All right, so in each and every moment when we have an experience, how are we addressing it? Are we addressing it unconditionally? Are we blaming? Is there some form of judgment, blame, guilt, or shame surrounding our response to what's happening to us? Whether the judgment and blame and all of that is on ourselves or on another person. Okay. So that's one thing we want to understand moment to moment. Because as long as there's judgment, as long as there's blame, guilt, shame, and there's resistance, that resistance keeps us from being able to switch our conditional thoughts into unconditional thoughts. And we know the difference between unconditional and conditional. Conditional, there's some form of loss, lack, illness, stress, struggle, what have you. Unconditional, we got grace, ease, abundance, long-lasting results, what have you. So we want to, the next thing is we want to unconditionally allow others to be fully accountable and responsible for their experiences. So we don't want to take on somebody else's responsibility for something, because that's not allowing them. When we do that, it's taking away their ability to shift that energy for themselves. Okay? And we can't shift it for them. We can't do it. So all we're doing is we're just taking on an additional level of struggle and stress that we can do nothing about. It's like just picking up a block, a concrete cinder block, all right, and just putting it on top of our head and just walking around with it. It doesn't do anything for us, all right? So it's no benefit. So that's why we want to allow others to be accountable and responsible for themselves. So because they're in the position to be able to change the energy, their own energy. We can't do it for them. No matter how much we want to, how loving we think it might be, we can't do it. And then use quantum science, which is the most efficient way to change the subconscious from conditional to unconditional. And that is to replace the energy in the moment we experience the triggered emotional upset. Now, this is super, super, super important, because when we do it in the moment, that's the moment that it's going to make the difference. That's the moment where we can truly change and shift that energy, that from being conditional to being unconditional. Okay? And we want to think of it this way. Well, before I go there, we want to realize that, a lot of the times our habit is we experience something, we react to it, we may have judgment or whatever, and we know because we'll feel a certain way about something, all right, and that lets us know that we've judged something. There's some sort of judgment, blame. There's some sort of conditional thought that we used in the response that we had, or the reaction that we had to the experience. And so when if we're so used to having that and not doing anything about it in the moment, we just push it under the carpet because we may judge that we have that experience. So we're doubly judging now. That we judge the experience, and now we're judging that we judge the experience. And so we just have a habit of pushing it under the carpet. And then maybe later on, we'll go back and we'll think about it and process it and think, oh wow, well yeah, I handled it this way. That wasn't conditional. It wasn't helpful. It didn't help me change. You want to understand, when you do that, it doesn't change the energy. Even though you go back, all right, and you realize what you did, and you may look at it unconditionally in the moment when you go back, you have to realize that that moment of really having that change passed. Okay? That moment passed. So what you're doing now when you go back and look over it and everything is you're processing, what's called processing, and that doesn't shift the energy. It doesn't shift the energy where it makes it most efficient and effective. And we can compare it to a guided missile. So when our guided missile is off, all right, if we wait until the missile is like 100 kilometers or 300 kilometers off, okay, and then we try and do something about it, it's going to take a tremendous amount of energy, all right, to attempt to get it back on course, okay, and depending on how far away we are from our target, we might not be able to get it back on course in time. But if we notice the guided missile is off by a foot, okay, or maybe even 10 feet, all right, it's much less energy and effort and much quicker to get that missile back on course when we notice it's only a few feet off, all right? And even if we're close to the target, we can adjust in time so that we hit the target. So it's timing that is really, really important of when we address these things that makes the difference. So understand or know that and become aware of that. So the more unconditional you are with yourself and how you respond to life, the sooner you can see yourself and how you're responding, and the sooner you can address the energy, and the more efficient and effective it will be at shifting it. So it all adds up and builds up on each other. So as a result, when you allow yourself to be guided by, so what happens when you do all of this is that you open to the power of your intuition. The more and more you work on this, and the more aware you are of becoming aware of your conditional thoughts, because as those clear out, you open up more to your intuition, and it's not clouded by conditional thoughts. So as a result, when you allow yourself to be guided by your intuition, you have access to the roadmap that takes you around the obstacles to allow you to have what you want more gracefully, easily, and abundantly. Okay? And your intuition is a part of you that has access to the world beyond your five senses. So you remember in the beginning when I talked about our five senses and how they were really frequency detectors. All right? Well, those are just five. There's a lot more different frequencies out there that are available that are out there that we don't have the physical organs, so to speak, to access them. So that's where our intuition comes in. It's our intuition that can access those other frequencies. And so our intuition is what is the guidance system that leads us through the most supportive path for our higher self and manifesting our intention. Okay? So when as you work on clearing these conditional thoughts up, your intuition becomes, have greater and greater access to your intuition. and it'll you'll do things, it'll tell you to do things that might not even make any sense in the moment. But remember, it's accessing these other frequencies that you don't have access to. So for your intuition, it makes perfect sense. But because you don't have access to those frequencies, it's like it might be like you're reading a book and somebody rips out, like, every 10 pages, somebody rips out 50 pages. And then and so the things don't always make sense because it's like you're missing a chunk of information that your five senses and your conscious mind doesn't have access to. So that's really right here, opening to your power of intuition. That's the thing that really brings life into its fullness and into the wonder of living it and into it being seen as an adventure. It's like, ooh, what's around this corner? I know it's going to be something good, right? Because you have your intuition that's going to support you in guiding you around the obstacles, all right? And or giving you, when you run into an obstacle, giving you the information to get out of it. So life doesn't have to become scary anymore. So let's talk about the how. Okay? How effective tools work to improve your guided missile system. All right? So we're on a guided missile system where it's also using the intuition, which makes it much more effective at hitting the target and adjusting quickly. So again, timing. When you are aware, you can make changes in the timing that is most effective, which is now. Now is the timing that you can make changes, and now is the timing when it's most effective, all right, to make those changes. So as soon as you feel the upset, it's a flag. Missile is off course, off course, off course. Will Robinson, danger, Will Robinson. Then you can you understand that, and you have the tools to address it in that moment. And this happens because you're getting your thoughts realigned from being destructive to constructive, from being conditional to being unconditional. The more unconditional thoughts you have, the greater your ability to manifest and create what it is that you would love to have in your life. And beliefs. Again, beliefs are thoughts you keep thinking, okay? And as your thoughts become more unconditional, your beliefs become more unconditional. Your beliefs become more unlimited. That's the word. They become more unlimited. And so as you're using these tools, your beliefs come up as well, and they have a light shined on your beliefs. And so you begin to understand which beliefs are affecting your ability to manifest what you want, because the beliefs are counter to what you want to create in your life. Okay? So as you use these tools, you begin to see these beliefs and you can begin to address them. And where do you address them? Your subconscious mind. So this is where 90% of your thoughts reside. This is the part of the mind that has the greatest influence on your words, choices, actions, and beliefs. So your subconscious mind, how do you know it's in there? It comes up as you experience life, as you go through life. All right? How are you responding? That's coming from your subconscious mind. How are you reacting? That's coming from your subconscious mind. And so knowing how to look for clues, all right, and signs will tell you what's in your subconscious mind. So it'll be like, oh, wow. And then it'll no longer be in your subconscious mind. It'll be in your conscious mind because you were aware of it. And then when you're aware, you can really address it in the moment. And it will no longer be a thoughtless reaction to something. All right. You'll see it. It'll happen. It'll come up and you'll go, oh, wow. Thank you. thank you for letting me know that you're there, and I'm addressing you with love, and whatever you were there for before, I thank you, and we're moving on because it no longer is serving what's my soul's desire. But it protected me to be able to get up to this point. So, that's addressing it unconditionally and not making it an enemy. You don't want there's no reason to make your subconscious mind an enemy. All right, it has purpose, it has good. It's there to keep us alive, to protect us, to get us to the next step. And then when that tool no longer is useful for what you're requiring, you just replace it with another tool. So that's all you're doing. It's not anything, right or wrong. It's just what's needed in the moment. So, words also. And this is another way of understanding what's in your subconscious mind and what are the words that you use to describe things. What are the words that come out of your mouth? That's also something that's very telling and revealing in regards to what's in your subconscious. And when you notice your words, like you may notice that you're saying can't a lot. Okay? And that should tell you that, oh my gosh, I'm highly limiting myself, all right, into what it is that I'm creating. So when that happens and you notice you're using words that are counter to what you're wanting to create, and you just realize it, and then you address it, and you just refocus on what you want. All right, you address it unconditionally. You don't make it wrong. You just, all right, that's there. Thank you. Now I know I must refocus again on what I want to have. And as you do this, you can begin to really change the nature of your base thoughts to be more in alignment with what you want to create. And your base thoughts and when you have thoughts, again, it's the energy that you're projecting out there. So your base thoughts, your base energy that you're projecting out into the world. Okay, and then emotions and reactions. So how are you reacting to things? What emotions come up? Do you constantly feel the emotion of anger or abandonment or jealousy, or what emotions are coming up as you are experiencing life on a daily basis? I experience emotion of joy, of happiness, of hope. That will tell you where you are and what you may need to address and refocus on. Or reinforce if you're feeling the energy of or the emotion of happiness or hope or whatever, what have you, then be in the joy of that and reinforce it more. Okay. So there's some tools out there. I'm going to talk about one that like I use. It was very effective for me as the how, and that's the Freedom is Internal system. So how that supports this whole process of being able to shift your thoughts and the energy that you're projecting out there from being unconditional to being, from being conditional to being unconditional. So from being, anger, fear to being love in its innocence, from experiencing loss, lack, illness, stress, struggle, what have you, to experiencing grace, ease, and abundance. Okay. These are the tools that I use. This is a specific tool that I used. Okay. So let's see how this tool fits into our previous thing of effective tools, our previous slide of talking about the important points of effective tools. So we have timing. So the system supports you in building your awareness so that you can use the 12 keys that's in the system to be able to make changes in the moment in which the most effective time to make constructive changes occurs. Okay, so that is in the moment of the upset. When you're in the moment of the upset, you can use this particular tool called the 12 keys to be able to shift to transform that energy that's conditional, all right, and those thoughts that are conditional into being unconditional, all right? And then the tools support you in being able to look at your thoughts um, without judging. So remember when I talked about it earlier, when people are having these emotions or having these responses and are having these thoughts, and then they're just immediately shoving them under the carpet because they're judging them, and that's just the habit that we have. So this tool supports you in being aware of when you are doing that, and then aware before you start doing it. So then you never do it in the first place. So as you continue to use these tools, you begin to see your life in an unconditional manner. So things that happen to you or thoughts that you think, you're not judging them. You're just like aware, and you're happy you're aware. Because wouldn't you rather know that you're off course? Wouldn't you want to know that you're off course so you can make adjustments? So that's all this is. This gets you back to how a guided missile works. A missile doesn't judge itself that it's off course. Okay, it doesn't go, oh my gosh, I'm a foot off course. How horrible am I? I'm a really sucky guided missile system because I'm 2 feet off course. Oh, do I suck? Oh, is life horrible? Oh, this really sucks. This is bad. No, it doesn't do that. It's just like, off course. Let's adjust back to the right or back to the left. Get back on course. 2 degrees or 0.5 degree adjustment made. There we go. And that's it. So if a guided missile system acted like a human being, okay, it would be the guided missile would see that it's 2 feet off course, judge the crap out of itself, and then end up a mile off course. Okay, so it would be and then end up 20 miles off course because it judged itself that was a mile off course, and it would just like never get to its target because it's judging the crap out of itself that it's off course all the time. So that's that. This system really brings it back to being as a guided missile. So the system provides tools to support changing your beliefs through reinforcing unconditional energies so that they support what you do passion in your life, as opposed to settling for the limitations of your beliefs. Okay? So you don't have to settle for the limitations of your beliefs. All right? And if your beliefs are giving you exactly what you want, perfect, you're already there. Rejoice, because that's not where most people on the planet are. So, be happy you're one of the very lucky few. Okay, now, excuse me, let's address the subconscious mind. So, using volume 1, which is called Spirit, all right, you can directly transform your subconscious mind from limiting thoughts into aligning with your conscious mind. So the way that this particular tool is created is the way that the words are written on the page, the words that are how they're put together. It directly accesses your subconscious mind and changes it at the subconscious level. So the more you read this, okay, the more you're directly transforming your subconscious thoughts into from being conditional into being unconditional. So as you read this more and more, you'll begin to realize that you're having more and more unlimited thoughts, and they're less and less limited. So this is a really powerful tool. It's very fun too. And the system supports you in providing vibrationally constructive words for yourself. So that will, support you in bringing in to you what it is that you want. Remember, words also are transmitting energy as well because they have energy. I know that there's a saying of sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Whatever, that's that saying, right? Words can affect your reality. They can. It's the intention and focus behind the words can affect your reality. So, there's a lot of sayings that we're used to hearing, and those sayings aren't the most supportive of us. they aren't the most supportive for us. And so really, as you come to use the system more and more, you'll begin to see that all of the stuff that we were taught, all these little sayings and these little stories that we were taught growing up, you realize how they were really programming limitations into ourselves. So it's really this is a really eye-opening process and a freeing process when you really work it and use it and become it. These aren't really tools to use. This is a way to be, and there's tools to help you to be that way. And what is that way? Being unconditionally accountable and responsible simultaneously with self and others. That's it. You're either being that or you're not. That's pretty much the world. Either you're being it or you're not. So it is what it is. All right. So last one is emotions and reactions. So it supports you in detecting the most subtlest of emotions and reactions. So you can know if you're off course or you're on course. So you can know if your reactions or responses are conditional or unconditional. Okay, and I'll give you an example of one. Like if you are hesitant to tell somebody the truth, okay, because you think it's going to hurt their feelings, that's conditional. All right, you're judging. You're subtly judging the person that they aren't strong enough or can't handle the truth. And the fact that they're asking you something means they're ready to hear it and they're able to hear it. All right, they're asking you, so they're willing. They might not like the answer you give them, but giving them the truth and giving it to them unconditionally is the best thing that you can do for them, because you're being unconditional with them. Okay, because you're not judging them that they can't handle it. So it's understanding things at that level, so you know where there's still some judgments going on in your life, and where it's still causing some resistance for you having what it is that you say you want in your life. So that's it. So you can find this at freedomisinternal.net. And if you're wanting to really know more about these different tools, then it'll explain it on there, and you can find out more information. But it's freedomisinternal.net. So if you have any questions, again, leave them in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, what you thought about it. I'd love to hear your responses. I'd love to hear your questions. I can answer them in the comment section. And if you like what you heard, please like, comment, and subscribe, and share the video with others that you might think would find this helpful. So again, I enjoyed giving you this information. It was really fun, and I hope to see you in another video. Bye-bye for now.